Okay. Welcome to the most anticipated podcast. Welcome to Truth Over Trends. My name is Bongani, aka Bongs, and I'm not going alone. I'm joined by my brother from another mother brother.
Thosi Matonsela.
And I'm not walking alone with my brother, I'm with my sister over here. Yes, this is us. Today we have a very special guest, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself. My brother over here in the middle.
My name is Benam Tanaka Koredema.
We'd like to welcome him here, and he has been married for 21 years, if I'm not mistaken. 20 years, I was close.
Almost, yeah.
Almost. So today we are having a very interesting episode. We are talking about dating in the church. So the trend of today's dating in the church. So firstly, I'd like to just get straight to the business of the day. As we see Brother Tanaka out here, there are so many trends when it comes to dating. We see so many things, we see so many trends, but I'd first like to ask you, is there anything particularly different that you have noticed with our dating in our generation versus when you were growing up in terms of dating?
Wow, interesting question. Thanks, Bongs, for that. I think I'd say there's a big difference. There's a big difference in regards to how we dated. Maybe I could just give you a quick picture of what that looked like for us. So for us, one, it wasn't easy to just meet up and be with a girl alone where you can discuss things. It was always getting to meet them was also quite hard. So either it was at gatherings like church or at school or in college, but the actual dating part, it was very conservative. It was very conservative. We had no phones, so we would have to make whatever arrangements. If we met at church, whatever arrangements we made at church meant that if we're going to meet on Saturday, then we'd only meet on Saturday at that time, at that venue. There was no interactions or communications in between that. And then back then, dating was more. When we set out to date, I'd say it's more of courtship, maybe with something that we can get into. But it was more of courtship that we are already starting to think about marriage. It wasn't, let's see how this goes. But once you start dating, you're already thinking about marriage. If any people saw you dating, they're already thinking that in their minds, you're preparing for marriage. So I can say in a nutshell, I can say that dating back then was with the intention to marry from the onset.
Okay, thank you so much for that point. And you touched on something called courtship. Do you mind explaining to the viewers what that is, and is it different from dating as we know it? Is there a particular difference in those two terms there?
Right, so how I understand it, first, just dating is more temporary and individual, and courtship is with an intention to marry. So it's with an intention to marry, and it also usually involved more people who are concerned about the relationship, whether it was family, whether it was the church, but more people were involved in that to offer counsel, to offer guidance. And I guess even way before that, marriages were arranged. So it wasn't an individual endeavor like it is today. Today, dating is very, very individual. People can date and for a long time without any other people being involved or offering counsel. It's very individualistic. So courtship is more. It's a serious. Well, if I were to say it would be a more serious stage in dating, because dating is mainly just getting to know each other. And I guess it's something that we can also discuss in regards to what does that actually mean when we say I'm going to date. What do you understand dating to be? is it the same as what he understands dating to be when you say we are dating? Do you have the same mind as to what you're actually getting into? So I think that's the main difference between courtship and dating. Dating is to getting to know one another, and then courtship is now intended to marry.
Okay, I think you posed a very interesting question in understanding dating. Let me put it my perspective. So from how I understand dating, it's a private thing. That's one thing I've noticed, that dating versus courtship is that courtship is more like parents are involved. You touched on things like your partner would have been known in the household. They already know, your parents know that, okay, you are dating that type of person, you are dating this person, and you would have introduced the person to your parents. But with dating, it's more like an individual thing, right? You even hear sometimes with young people saying, no, I'm not going to tell anyone about it. At least I get my own heartbreak. My parents didn't know, anyone didn't know. And then you find that the week before they had someone, and again the next week it's another person. It's like a rotation. They call this thing called rotational dating, where you'll be dating 5 people, where you're going on dates with various of people. Whereas with courting, it's more like it's intentional, that this person I'm going to spend the rest of my days with. And again, with you spoke about arranged marriages, that both families would have raised their kids with certain principles. The boys were raised with the principle that this is your role as a husband, and then the girl would have been raised in a specific way, that this is your role as a wife. But noticing today, parents these days don't really use, some parents of course, but parents these days are mostly focused on, you have to focus more on your career, which I understand entirely. But the problem is that when these people get into the marriage, you'll find that they lack the skills to make that marriage work. But I think, Ntho, you can also add on, what do you think are the dynamics between dating and courtship?
Yeah, let me begin from this perspective. From my side, I think we rush too much, and we are not taught, particular in the church and in homes, on how to date. What is dating? What is courtship? How do you differentiate those things? I always say, what normally happens in weddings is that by the time the two people are sitting there, there are these speeches. They say, welcome to motherland, welcome to fatherland, and they are now giving them speeches to say, this is how you must behave in your home, this is how you must behave, husband, this is all these advices. My worry is that by the time these advices are being given, it's too late. Those people are already drunk on emotions. They are not interested in those advices. All they are interested in is that, now, when is this wedding ending, so that we can go and start our lives. I think before we even talk about dating, I think sometimes we don't go back and look at the process from the beginning to say, what is the purpose of dating in the first place? And then, is the current form of dating that is being used achieving that purpose? My personal philosophy is, people need to start knowing each other before they are committed to a relationship. Last time we spoke with my father, we were attending a marriage seminar. They spoke about the community, that in the olden days, church used to be a community. So you would know a person because you go to the same church or you live in the same community. So you are able to observe a person from a distance before you even say your intentions. Because once I come to a lady and I say to her, I'm interested in you, and then once I've said to her, I'm interested in you, but then I'm still observing her, wouldn't she change her, I think my father Kenneth, wouldn't she change her behavior because now I have shown my intentions? So my philosophy, my personal belief is people should start being friends. Start observing the person from a distance without her being under pressure that you are already observing her. Because by the time you have shown your intentions, she might start behaving in a way that suits you so that you can make the decision. So I believe in observing from a distance. Once you are satisfied that your observation is a good match, then you start engaging the person. And even when you are engaging the person, you don't go straight for romance. You are engaging the person to say, we are exploring if we are suitable for each other before we go on to the actual courtship. Because I feel like we jump stages. We jump into the stage where we are now romantically involved and preparing for marriage. And because we have jumped stages, we now are not able to see red flags. There are certain red flags that you will notice from a person while you are still friends. Because while you are still friends, they are comfortable. They have no pressure. They are comfortable to show you their true character. And once you jump that stage and go to a stage whereby you guys are romantically involved, it becomes tough for you to be able to see the red flags because already you are drunk on emotions, you are drunk on love. And that's my feeling to say we jump stages and we should go back as the church, as ministers, and redefine the stages of dating. In closing, normally when I describe it, I describe it as the temple. I don't know if you remember the temple in the olden days. There was the Holy of Holies, there was the holy place, there was the inner court, and there was the outer court. And there were people who were permitted to go to the outer court, but not permitted to go to the inner court. There were people not permitted to go to the holy place. Only the Israelites will go to the holy place. Then there were people who were permitted to go into the Holy of Holies, where the covenant box is, or the presence of God is. Only the priest was allowed. So I think if we can use that model to say each and every lady must understand that he is like a temple of God, and there are people who must work in order for them to get to the holy place. The problem is that in today's society, in today's way of dating, and in the worldly way of dating, people jump to the holy place. You meet today, you sit together, you discuss. In the evening, you are in the Holy of Holies, and we know what would happen to priests if they go into the Holy of Holies without permission. They will die there. And we wonder why our youth are where they are today. It might be that they've jumped stages. They've went into the Holy of Holies or in the holy place without, because my view is that when a person is at the outer court, he must prove himself that he is worthy of going into the inner court. Once they are in the inner court, they must prove themselves that they are worthy of going into the holy place. So when we start out as friends, you as the guy, you observe your friend, the lady also observes you as a guy. Then once you see what this person is qualified, looking at their character, looking at their behavior, looking at who they are, their beliefs, they qualified to go into the inner court. Then you say, okay, I've seen you from a distance. I'm interested. Let me graduate you now from the outer court into the inner court. Now, once a person enters the Holy of Holies or enters the holy place, and you discover that they are not the one, now breaking that relationship is tough. I think maybe we can explore that topic as well to say, now, for a person who is at the outer court, who is just a friend, when you discover that, no, this is not the type of a person I'm looking for, or there's a character flaw, or there are red flags, you continue being friends without a problem. No heart is broken, no one is receiving any problem. But the problem is we bring people into the wrong place too early, before their time. Let us be slow. Take your time. Put people in their proper categories until they prove themselves. Especially the holy place and the Holy of Holies. There we know that the Holy of Holies, you only go there if you are married, right? But sometimes people go into the Holy of Holies without the proper permission. Only one person should enter the Holy of Holies. That is the priest who has been appointed, the appointed priest. And the only way we appoint a priest is through marriage. But the problem with our generation, many people have been to the Holy of Holies and they are not priests. And we know, Uguti, what happens to a person who enters the Holy of Holies without the proper permission. So my opening will be, I think we are too fast. Let's go back as the church, as men of God, people of God. Let's redefine dating and go through the process and not rush the process. I think if we can do that, we'll have a better or a more successful way to marriage. But at the end of the day, dating is a route to marriage. You are exploring each other for the sake of seeing if you are suitable partners for marriage. And if you rush the process, you don't give yourself enough time to explore if the person is the right person for you. That will be my first submission.
My brother cooked. I think we can close it. There's nothing to add. No, what I highlighted the most is that we qualify the unqualified. That's one thing I picked up from that. We qualify people that are unqualified, that have not qualified for that position. We are too early to just give a person a qualification because of our emotions, like, I love the person, but that person hasn't really proven themselves qualified for that particular position. You will find that that person was never qualified, but because your emotions told you that this one is the one, let me give them that position. And this is why you have someone who's not that qualified for that particular job. I also had the same conversation with someone recently where I mentioned that the more that you give people a title, for example, when already you have been seeing someone, already you are giving them that position, hey my love, my sweetheart, it's easy for them to play that role because you have given them the keys to the castle. So now they know that, okay, this person thinks of me like this, so let me pretend. And because I hear people say, but this person was pretending, it's because you are so early to give them the keys. Whenever you with a person, you need to first get to know them. I like what you mentioned, friendship, right? Friendship, that get to know them, because when you are friends with someone, it's easy to see those flaws because they are comfortable. Yeah. But now when you put them and give them that position, they know that I have to be careful and not say this and not say this. But by the time now that you have married them, it's already late, because now they know that now we are married, so we are bound together. So I love the fact that the Holy of Holies needs to be someone who's qualified. It needs the priest. So thank you so much for that point. Now coming here to my sister here, Premanya, do you have anything to add regarding what he said, or your own points? You feel like dating and courtship is similar, different? What can you add to the conversation?
I'm going to explain on the dating part. Teacher of mine in high school once said that dating was cannot get into a relationship with someone, but like going on dates with multiple people to figure out who they are. So now I'm not sure whether it's wrong because it's multiple people, but I'm trying to get to know them so I can get to choose who I'm most suitable with. Because like you say, you should know a person before we jump into a relationship with each other, right? So now, isn't like the same thing as becoming friends with the person and then get into a relationship, or and going on dates with that person, like maybe 5 days, I'm not sure. Maybe 5 days, we talk about our parenting styles, how we grew up, what we believe in, because obviously God has to be like an important part of our relationship. We both have to serve God. One cannot be something different, you see. And also the part where you mentioned that, what can I say? Oh, you have to observe someone. So if I meet someone in the church building, we tend to act differently in different places. So then how sure am I about this person's behavior? Like, the way that they're behaving in the church building is the same way that they behave outside. Because I may behave like a good person, serve God, I'm humble and stuff. But then when I'm outside, I am not humble, I'm disrespectful. I do whatever pleases the world, whatever pleases myself. I'm not someone who, can I say, who reflects what a Christian should be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me come in so that my father can come in at the end, in case he needs to fix there and there. I believe when it comes to how many partners can you see, I believe it depends on the level you are in that model that I've explained. Once you are in the Holy of Holies, or you are in the holy place, there you need to be exclusive, because now you are preparing each other. It's either you're preparing each other for marriage, or you're about to be married. But when you talk about friendship, you can be friends with multiple people, right? We are talking about proper friendship, not friendship that is, yes, you have an intention behind the back of your mind, but at the end of the day, you are talking about normal friendship, that you can be friends with a lot of people, right? And then you look amongst the people you are friends with who say, who qualifies to move on from being a friend to being a special friend? Whom can I move closer into the inner circles? Once you've identified to say, okay, these are the people that I'm interested in, but this one is the one that I connect with the most, is the one that I believe can build a marriage or a relationship with me. Let me then bring them closer to the inner circle. Now, once you bring them to the inner circle, and as they go into the inner circle, then they become exclusive. Then you say, okay, I've chosen this, unless again there are things that come up that end up ending that relationship, then you can go back and start the system again. I don't know, I'll give it to my father.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks, Ben. I think that's interesting that you raised that point about multiple friends, dates to get to know. Because I guess dating, you're trying to get to know someone. And a question that I would have is that you need to have everybody in that circle of people need to understand what dating is. Because if they don't understand, it's going to cause problems. Because if a guy asks you on a date, it's an invitation to get to know him. You're also getting to know him. But today, it's a blurred line between when you say yes, very soon you have to set the parameters of what you are. Because if he sees you just left here, McDonald's at 10, and then at 2 p.m. I see you at Nando's with another guy, and you're sitting in a setting, he's gonna have questions. And then that's when you now need to, which brings another discussion. When do you have these discussions to say, are we dating exclusively or not? But that only comes after everybody understands what dating is. What is it? Is it just us getting to know each other? So I think there's also not a lot of discussion and communication about that when people invite each other for a date.
True that.
To say, okay, I'm asking you out for a date. What does that even mean? because I want to get to know you. Okay, you want to get to know me. That's fine. Do you know that? So sometimes it's awkward to say, do you know that I'm also trying to get to know other people? But you need to get to a point where that's clear. That I'm also seeing other people. And you can also see other people because we're just trying to get to know each other. I think my brother raised an interesting point about, I love the analogy you used about the temple. And there can be a point where there's going to be hurt. I was having this discussion with my wife and my daughter when I was just trying to prepare for this. And one of the questions we asked was, why do people get hurt when they're just trying to get to know each other?
Exactly.
Why do they get hurt? It's because people have gone to where they're not supposed to go.
True
They've
that.
skipped stages.
True that.
So multiple, that also came up, and I'm on my opinion, I don't think people should be seeing multiple, but I'm still going to get there. We'll discuss. Let's discuss more, and then I'll explain myself later.
Okay.
Okay.
I want us to look at this aspect. I have a feeling that one of the biggest challenge, I think me personally, it's one of the biggest challenge that I think I've faced as a young guy within the church. It seems like, in fact, within the Christian community, it seems like sometimes we have different ideas of what dating is, especially for people who were baptized later in their life. In the world, we know what dating means. Immediately you meet a girl, already you are going to become sexual, right? You are going to engage. It's normal. When people date, even the same day when they meet, they go there. That this relationship becomes romantic from the word go. From the time the guy is proposing, it becomes romantic from there. There is kissing, and I think that culture that belongs to the world is seeping into the church community. And we are doing things within the dating field, within the church, that is done outside. The outside is influencing us. Hence, you have Christians who jump stages, number one. Number two, who don't understand what dating is. I think especially those of us who are serving in the church, I think it's time that even elders and deacons and ministers, we need to go back and define what dating is. Teach it to young people so that everyone is on the same page. Because it's difficult for you to have a different understanding that we are just friends when you are approaching someone who thinks of it as a romantic relationship. So you are dating from different mindsets. So I think that becomes a challenge. We need to go back and then have, as a church, have our own rules. Because I always tell people that each and every, especially if you've gone to denominations and other places, each and every denomination has got a defined way of going to marriage. If you go to any girl within that denomination and ask him, what is the route to marriage here? They will tell you, I remember when we grew up, they will tell you, you go to so if you go to any lady and ask her from any denomination, in your denomination, what is the route to marriage? They will tell you, some will tell you you have to go to the elder and say to the elder, I'm looking for a wife. The elder will say, who are you looking for? I'm looking for that lady. The elder will go to that lady and ask that lady to say, Togosisi is asking for your hand to marry. If that lady agrees, they marry them. In other places, you go to the lady. Once you and the lady have agreed, you go to the elder. I feel like in our case, we haven't defined what exactly. If you can get a lady and ask her, what is the route to marriage in our church? And then you get another guy, what is the route to marriage in this church? You will get 2 different or 4 different ways in which they look at and in terms of the route to marriage. I think we need to do the work of going to define, to say, in our Christian community, this is the route you must follow. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Obviously, it won't be like that. There will be outliers there and there. But in general, this is what we follow. And obviously, there is the involvement of God and prayer to guide the whole process. But from a operations point of view, I feel we are lacking in terms of giving young people a direction to say, if you are in, when are you allowed to even venture into dating, right? What does it mean? What do you do? Do you go out to spare and eat? Do you pay? Who pay? I think beyond just saying that the youth is having problems, we ourselves have not given the youth direction in terms of, in this church or in this Christian community, this is how we do things. And I think if we can do that as a first step, we will solve a lot of problems. And then 2, it then becomes the culture to say, what is the culture that we have developed here? Once we develop a culture to say, in this church, the culture says, ladies don't do this, guys don't do this. For example, in our community, the culture says, you don't touch a lady a certain way unless you are married to them. It becomes a culture, we know. Do we hold hands? Do we not hold hands? In certain churches, the culture says you don't hold the hand with a lady. You can go out, you can eat, you don't hold hands, or you don't kiss. But in our situation, if people feel like kissing, they kiss. In other people, when they date, they kiss. In other people, when they date, they hold hands. And there are disadvantages and advantages to that. There are wrongs and there are rights. Some of it, it's not a problem, but some of it, it's a serious problem. But we haven't sat down and said, what is permissible, what is not permissible, and then we package it and then give it to young people to say, in our Christian community, this is the route to follow. Don't do this, don't do that. Don't do this here. Like my father always advises us, me and Sims, to say, don't buy women expensive gifts. Don't buy them because they will feel a need to thank you. Especially if it's a lady who is not good financially. If you want to buy a gift, buy something that the lady can buy for herself. Because if you buy something expensive, she will feel the need to thank you. And how can she thank you if she does not have the money? She will use what she has. So these are the type of things I think that should be given to young people as a rule, to say these are the rules that young people should follow.
Okay, thank you so much for that point. Coming back to what she said, right? I want to touch on 2 things, right? The first one, what she said, and I also want to touch on red flags because Brother Tanaka touched on red flags, so that's what I want to touch on. I hear your point, right? I'll come back to it. So looking at her point, she said that multiple people. The problem with this is that it leaves uncommunicated expectation. They result in disappointment. This is why you find yourself that now you stop talking to that person. That person is like, what did I do? Now they are starting to juggle that, what happened? I believe that yes, you can be friends with multiple people. You can talk with multiple people in a friendship setting. But there's a special, as you mentioned, there's a special friend that you have. And that's only reserved for one person. I have a rule I live by that myself, this is my rule. I'm not saying that people should apply it, but my rule says that I don't take each and every girl that I talk with on a date. Because, and I believe that a date is not a place to get to know someone. That's what I believe in. I could be wrong, I could be corrected. I believe that there's a talking stage. The talking stage is where you're just getting to know someone. You're just speaking to them. You're just trying to find out what their character is. There's no expectations, there's no nothing. So they are more comfortable with getting to know you and they are more comfortable showing those red flags and that character. Because if we're going to say that going on a date is getting to know someone, that means in a year, you got to know 10 people. it's already passed. Now you're looking for the 11th person to get to know. I found that a lot of guys sometimes they'll waste money going on 3 dates with someone they've no future with. Imagine that. Do you know honestly how sad it is to waste like 5 months of your time? You have been going with the person over and over again on dates, only for that person to turn around and say, I don't feel you, my brother. This thing is not going anywhere. Imagine, like you've taken this person out on 3, you have took out from your pockets, you have went to these restaurants, you have taken there to impress her, only for you to discover that you guys are not compatible. So I believe that dates should be restricted to confirm. You are confirming that, hey, we are dating. I believe that taking someone on a date should be to confirm that me and you, we are going to date, not a getting to know process, because if you do that, it's going to also lead to disappointments. That's why you find you went on 10 dates with the person, and again you're going to start with another person. So certain things need to be restricted, and I agree with you 100%. Certain things need to be restricted to a person that you know you have a future with, because currently we are having a problem, we're having a crisis in society where so there's this concept, yes, a man is a provider. Now you'll find that you have to be sending each and every week, you have to be sending girlfriend allowances. You have to be sending someone money every day to show that I love you. And if you don't do that, I know you are stingy. It's even labeled as stingy. Because certain things, honestly, they are supposed to be restricted to someone that you know that this person I'm going to spend my eternity with. But you'll see that dating out there has become a business. It's a business now. It's an emotional. Relationships now. They're therapy, where you find that people who are not healed, they use you to heal, and once they have healed, they go to the next person. They use you as a business, where once you have splashed every money that you have, they move on to the next. So this is where it gets to a point where we qualify the unqualified. So I believe let's go back to basics, where dating should be reserved, dates should be reserved for someone that you know, to confirm that this person is truly the one that I want to spend time with. Coming to my next point, I want to ask our guest. Someone close to me asked, okay, people change, and also there's no formula to this thing. So how can we combat that there's no formula, meaning that even if I try that, it's not going to work. If I try that, it's not going to work. How can we assist that person? And also, what are the red flags that young people need to pay attention to, young Christian people need to see in someone, to see that, to identify, is this person serious or not? Do people change within a marriage, or we missed some red flags there?
Wow. Interesting. So just ask your first question again. It's not very clear for me. The second one is fine, but the first one.
About the red flags?
No, not the red flags, the second part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, so people out there believe that there's no formula.
Okay.
You don't have a formula because a person can change. She also touched on it that when you meet someone, they behave accordingly to the way that you want. But once you marry them, they say that the true colors come out. Is that always the case?
Right. So it brings up an interesting discussion as well. Change, people are going to change. People have to change. That's important. Change is important, and change needs to be embraced. So this idea of getting to know each other also brings up another discussion as to how long do you need to know somebody before you get into the courting stage, before you get to that point where you say that now this is serious, now I'm dating. I wanted to ask you, maybe I'll ask you that question as well. I wanted to ask you the question that what is the difference between, because my understanding is that taking a person to the date is trying to get to know them so that you can decide whether you make it serious or not. But in terms of what you're asking, I think it's important for us to always first take a step back, before we look and we pray. As Christians, we have to pray. Why is prayer important? Because there are a lot of things that we're not going to be able to see and pick up from people. Because just generally, especially today, I understand why dating is what it is today, because of the way that we live. So in the same breath, you can't depend on your own ability to pick up certain things. Because like my sister said, people can act. People can act, they can put up a show, they can put up a front. But when our intention is marriage is an institution from God. We have to take it back to God and say, I want to be successful in this institution. And this institution is an institution that gives you glory. Because people are watching us and making an opinion about God based on how we conduct ourselves. So we throw it back to God and say, this is my petition. When Philippians says we must petition God, these are the things that we must petition God for. We want to give glory to you. So I need a partner, somebody I can walk this walk with, I can do your work with. I need this person. And then we can, I think that's the first and starting point. And then that's also going to guide us as to how we are going to evaluate, because God is going to put these people before us. And you have to make that final evaluation based on how you have also prepared yourself mentally, spiritually. How have you prepared yourself? So it has to start from you. And then you can now start going out there to see who I can pick. I'm still of the opinion that we need to, it's not easy because of just how we live, observation in different settings. So once you've shown your interest and you've taken somebody on a date, the dynamics have changed. As she rightfully said, the dynamics have changed. We were discussing it earlier today as well, saying that why do people dress up to go on dates when they're trying to get to know each other? Why do they have to dress up? What is the purpose of dressing up? And already I think there's a deception that can come from that. One, I'm dressing up. She is also dressing up to show the best foot, but is that the best foot for it? Because once you get married, some people also now just go back to, no, now I'm married, I don't need to dress up anymore. So dressing up is performative, and it's just something to keep in the back of your mind that people dress up to impress, but at the same time we mustn't be swayed by that. So first, prayer, observation, and I think it's also very important to communicate early the things that are important to you.
Absolutely.
One, things that are important to you, and I'm also of the opinion that you need to make your intention clear as early as possible, even if it's a first date. You don't want to waste people's time. You want them to waste your time, you don't want to waste their time. So make intentions known. And then from there you can start with boundaries, especially.
Absolutely.
Yeah, set boundaries. And some people are going to try and pretend because some people think you're not serious about these boundaries. They're going to test. Or they're just going to say, not for me. They go their own way, you go your own way. So I think from that regard, I think those first few things as to to answer your first question, is pray. Obviously, pray. You obviously said, just for your point of view, prepare yourself to be the person that you would want to marry in terms of morality, in terms of all these other values that are important. And then communication. Communicate your intentions as early as possible. And then red flags. So the thing about red flags is if you are already in this position, you're going to be able to pick up on red flags. I can't go through a list of which red flags to look out for because there are so many. But though whatever doesn't align with your values are red flags. If they seem to be worldly as a Christian, then that's a red flag. If they're not kind to other people, these are things that you can observe. Let's say you go out you go out. How does he even respect the Uber driver or the waiter or anyone, or all these interactions? You have to be. This is why it's important. My brother said that you become drunk with love. You want to have a clear mind so that you can make clear decisions, so that you can also see things. So this is, I think, a problem that has come with the youth today, is that once they've skipped steps and they engage in sexual activity, that's going to blur the lines. It's going to blur your clarity of thought and what you can see and pick up in a potential mate. So in terms of red flags, it should just be things that do not align with your values. And then obviously you also have to evaluate, is this something that can change? Am I supposed to be the one to be responsible for that change in terms of certain character flaws? Are you going to take that responsibility? Do you want to take that responsibility? So red flags, we just have to be alert. So long as we are alert, the word always says stand firm. So we need to stand firm on what we believe. And then when the red flags come, it's our duty to be able to pick them up. Like I said, I don't want to go into which are the specific red flags to look for. But it's just important to be able to make a decision. When you do see the red flag, you quickly make a judgment to say, that is a red flag, I'm not going to entertain it. Yeah, so maybe let me stop there for now.
Thank you so much for that point. I think the main thing that I highlighted is that it starts with yourself. You need to know yourself, and you need to have a relationship with God firstly before you go out there and date. Someone told me that there's certain things I wouldn't do, not because people are watching what I'm doing and because I don't want to give a bad reputation to Christianity, but I don't want to disappoint God. Because you'll find that sometimes as Christians we fall under this temptation that as long as people are not seeing me, I'm going to do that. But then you sit down and be like, but what would God think? Because the minute we put God as the center of everything, that what would God think about this, you'll find that our relationship in most cases is going to change. Because now we'll view things in a different manner. In terms of red flags, you'll find that sometimes we could see certain things that, this is off. But you told yourself that, this person's going to change. They're going to change because you love them. And you kept on until now you're stuck with them in marriage. And now it's like, this person transformed. But this is always who they were from the start. So it feels like you missed it. And there's this other lady who said that you need to stand firm with what you want. And it comes from knowing. She said that, I don't want a husband that smokes. That's that. She didn't compromise. Even who she ever dated, if she noticed this person was smoking, I don't want it. And she married, God willingly, someone who didn't smoke. Because she didn't compromise. She said that, because there's a person, I always tell people that there's a difference between having a preference and having a requirement. A preference is something which is flexible. I can change it and I don't have to always go with my preference. But a requirement is a requirement. I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to move. It's going to stand like that. So as a Christian, sometimes I think we fall under this challenge of saying, but yes, she is outside or she's outside of the church, it's fine. We can make it work, and that is when you start to compromise. But if you tell yourself that me, I want someone in the church, me, I want someone that prays, me, I want someone who puts God first, me, I want, and you don't change on it, I believe that God will see you through. And you touched on prayer, that sometimes you find that we don't put God in our we don't put God in our relationships. You'll find that we don't pray about our relationships. And then tomorrow we say, but God, you don't love me. Why did this happen? But He was never even in the center of the relationship in the first place. So I think that is something that we really need to work on. And thank you so much for bringing that point along about identifying red flags. So from that we can conclude that there is a formula. When you go to the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, it speaks about love is patient, love is kind. All those attributes we can bring into that relationship. And also we know what Ephesians 5 says regarding the roles that love your wife. So start practicing that of loving the person that you are with. Start practicing it. But you touched on not giving there are certain things which are restricted, and this is what I want to end with here. This is the last thing I want us to touch on, the trends now, because this is why we are here, the trends that we see. So now we are seeing that young people are under attack in terms of different trends. We have things like what do you bring to the table? We have trends like indoor must. We have trends like girlfriend allowance. We have trends, I think Sims mentioned it, I forgot that trend. Sims, you can tell me that trend, the hookup culture, right? We have all these situational relationships or friends with benefits. We have so many of these things. We may tell ourselves that these things are out in the world, but these things are slowly attacking young people. So I'm going to start with Brother Mtore. What do you think about these trends, and please mention how they're damaging to the young people, and how can we go about it as young Christians in terms of like warning the young people in terms of such trends? If you can.
Because if you talk about trends, it's quite a lot. And the challenge is each and every trend emanates from somewhere, right? When you talk about Indo-Damast, right, it is coming from somewhere. It is a product of things like feminism. They are the ones which produce these things. It's a product of irresponsibility. I think it's something that we, as time goes on, as we have these dating episodes, we are going to touch on some of the individual stuffs in terms of why is it that women feel like men must take care of them, because those are the responsibilities that should be done by someone within a marriage. And there, my brother, my father will tell you how does that work in the context of marriage. You must fully understand that before you get married, that person is not your wife, is your sister in Christ. And I think the mistake that we make is we treat people like our lovers instead of treating them like sisters in Christ. When you are dating someone, you might be dating someone's husband, you might be dating someone's wife, because for the fact that you are dating them does not mean you are going to marry them. I wish if God blesses me with a wife and I find that he has been hurt, I go to that guy and give him some bit of a hiding first. Because the problem is the hurt that you have caused to that lady, I have to deal with it in marriage. So I like the point where you said it's a first commitment to God. I always say to ladies, you are God's precious stones in God's jewelry box. And when a guy comes to you and takes you on a date or wants to marry you, he is taking a piece from God's jewelry box. You are so expensive. So it is very dangerous for you to play with God's property. When you take this lady on a date, she is God's property. She is God's daughter. You need to treat her with respect. So I think that's the first attitude that young people should have. That the things that you'll be doing to that lady that is out of line, her husband will have to deal with it when it gets to that point. So it's important that we don't focus on those trends, but we focus on what God wants us to do. How does God want me to treat this sister of mine? We are going to be sisters up until it gets to brother and sister, up until it gets to a point where we feel we can move the relationship to the next level. Once we move the relationship to the next level, then that's when we become more exclusive to say, now we can start telling the parents. Now I can start telling my father to say, listen, there is this person that I've met. These are my intentions with them. So I feel it also goes back to the point of being able to observe people from a distance before you bring them closer. We have church functions. Yes, it's not as it used to be in the past. Now things have changed. But I think starting from being a sister and a brother, and then once you see Uguti, this thing is going the right direction, then you move it to the next level. Once you see Uguti, it's working, then you move it to the next level. But the basic thing is, this is not your wife, this is not your property, this is God's property. You are just leasing it to check. It's like taking a car for a test drive. You don't end up taking your kids to school and doing groceries. No, you are taking the car to check if you and the car are compatible and are good for each other. After taking the car, you put it back in the garage until you buy the car. Because you may go on a drive with the car and then you may not like it. Maybe you don't like how it drives. Maybe you don't like certain features. You put it back in the garage. Someone else will like it. It doesn't mean, and also it's to women as well. When a guy rejects you for certain things, it doesn't mean you are a bad person. It means you are not their preference, right? And the next guy will come and love you like no one's business, right? So it's something that we must understand to say, guys have got preference. I think that's another trend that we have a problem with. We treat people's preferences as standards. Someone comes. I think the biggest problem is the trend that is going on now is that we make personal preferences the standard. For example, there's this thing of saying yellow bone. She's a yellow bone, and ladies will then think that if you are not yellow bone, then you are not beautiful. To an extent that ladies sometimes put on put the makeup. Sometimes they put on creams that removes the melanin from their skin so that they can look yellow bone. And because they think that that is the standard of beauty, which is not the standard of beauty. It was someone's preference. Maybe he was an influencer. He preferred and he said, no, I like. There are guys who love dark women. They adore them.
Amen.
It's their what are you trying to say, my brother? So there are guys who prefer dark women. There are guys who prefer fully bodied women. There are guys who prefer slender, the too slight. We say in Sizulu, slender by nature. So there are people who prefer that. There are people who prefer tall people, short people. There are people who prefer extrovert, people who can talk, people who can speak their mind. There are people who prefer people who are more reserved. So I think we have taken people's preferences and made them the standard of beauty. I always say there is no such thing as an ugly woman. It has never existed. By nature, women are beautiful. That's why personally I don't understand why would a guy date another guy, because guys are ugly. You can imagine another beard. No. But women are beautiful, right? By nature, women, there is no such thing as an ugly woman. It all depends on preference. What another guy may look at and say is ugly, another guy will see it as the most beautiful thing. There are things, even personally, that I prefer in women that a lot of guys say they don't like. You know, I know some say they like the reverse to be extra large. It's a trend that people say, but it doesn't mean all guys want that. You know, even ladies, even the way they dress, they want to show that the reverse is there. Even when they take pictures, you know, they want to show that, you know, my brother, these two brothers of mine, they exercise, they've got muscles. Some of us may feel inferior that because we've got one pair, only one pair, they've got 6. Then we might feel we are not handsome enough because we don't have the abs and the six-pack. But there are women, you know, my aunt always says to me, I hate men with muscles. I just want a guy to be normal.
Bright peg.
Yeah, to bright peg, you know, so that they can also brush the stomach. But these are preferences. Beauty is in the eyes of a beholder. And if when your husband or your partner is with you because you are yellow boned, what will happen when he meets people who are more yellow boned than you? If your partner is with you because you've got nyash, what happens when he meets people with bigger nyash? Because I'm sure yours is not the biggest. You are not the most yellow boned person. You are not the tallest, you are not the shortest, right? There will always be people who are more beautiful than your partner or who have more better features than your partner. You need to be interested in the person. I'm not saying physical attraction is not important, it's important, but you need to be interested in the person because no one can have a better personality no one can beat me at being myself. You see, so if someone is in love with me because of who I am, no one can beat me for being myself. I think we've lost that. Our relationships and our preferences are not genuine. We are focusing on the features instead of focusing on the person. Attraction is important, but at the same time, we must be aware that you need to be interested. You are dating to know the person and to be interested in the person. And I think some of these trends come into our relationships and our dating, and we make them the standards. Instead of building a personal relationship with the person or looking for the right person, we are chasing the person with the right hips, we are chasing the person with the right skin color and so on. So those are preferences, guys. Have your own personal preference, have your own personal thing that you are looking for. And if a guy finds ugly things in you, doesn't mean you are ugly. Another guy may find those things highly attractive. So I think those are some of the trends that are negatively affecting young people.
Okay, thank you so much, Brother Mtwa. You said a mouthful. I'm not going to add or subtract what you said. I'm going to jump here to spare any final English. What's the word I'm looking for? Any final comments on trends or contribution in terms of these trends that we see out there in the world? And how would you advise young people in the Lord who are dating?
Okay, I think as young people in the church, we shouldn't be, even though we notice what is happening like out in the outside world, we shouldn't be partaking in those trends like the hookup culture and stuff like that. Because first of all, I think the hookup culture is where you guys hook up and jump into the final, yes,
Holy of
holies. And we know that as Christians we're supposed to do that after we get married, right? So I don't think as young Christians we're supposed to be partaking in those trends that are happening outside. And then the issue of the indoor damast and the girlfriend allowance, I think it stems from the culture of that the man must be the provider. You know, men, like, if I think there are certain people who feel like I'm not man enough if I don't provide for my girlfriend. So when they break up with this girlfriend, the girlfriend moves on to the next man and demands the things that she got from the previous relationship. Meanwhile, this current partner that they have is not, can I say, they're not.
Don't have the mullah.
Yes, they don't have the money that the previous person had. They don't feel like they have to provide now because you're not married, right? But then now, because I've been accustomed to that, can I say, that behavior that from my partner I have to receive money, my partner has to provide for me, my partner has to pay rent. You see, now it's difficult for me to like adjust and become independent. You see, but then I feel like we shouldn't rely as a woman. You shouldn't rely on a man to provide for you if you guys are married. You should always have your own stuff, earn your own money, so that you what can I say, are able to provide for yourself. Because at sometimes when women depend on men for money, it tends to become tough for them to leave when the relationship isn't beneficial for them anymore. Because they find that
They want their things back sometimes.
Because they find that even maybe I'm being abused as a woman in the relationship, but then because I receive money from this man, I'm not going to leave. Because who's gonna provide for? Who's gonna pay for my rent? Who's gonna pay for my tuition or whatever that I'm doing? So now, if you have your own money, you know it's easier for you to leave. You know you can provide for yourself. You know you can do things for yourself. Even if you leave this man, nothing of yours will change because you know you can do things for yourself. But then because I don't have my own money, I'm relying on my partner to do stuff for me. It becomes really, really hard for me to leave. And now I stay and I tolerate things that I wouldn't tolerate if I had my own money.
Thank you so much for that comment. Thank you so much to our guest, Brother Tanaka. Please leave us with a word of wisdom to us as young people who want marriage, who really desire marriage. What are some of the things that you can give to us? If tomorrow I'm saying I'm going to get married, what comment? Please give us the words of wisdom, please.
Yeah, I think, thanks for that. Thanks for having me in this space. I really appreciate it. I think I'll just touch on a few points and then just give my closing remarks. Just to touch on the trends, that trends come and go. So trends come and go, and I think one important thing that we always have to, as Christians, one thing we always have to look back to and also interrogate is who is pushing this message? Where is this message coming from? Whether it's Indodamas, whether it's a trend, any trend. And when we ask that question, we should be able to come back to one conclusion, that it comes from the devil. It comes from the devil. Any of these things that are being pushed out, especially if mainstream media seems to push it, if it's in movies, we need to question what is the root of this trend? What is the root of this action or this new thing that we're doing? If it's something new that people who are dating, or even if it's new terminology around dating, because I think that's another thing that's here with dating. When we talk about, that's why I say we need to understand what do we mean by dating, because there's so many definitions and so many words around it, and there's only one person who comes with that kind of confusion to muddy the waters, which is the devil, and his main intention is to take young people away from coming together in marriage. So anything that can cause that to happen is pushed forward. So which is why I was saying that for me, dating, I wouldn't want to put dating as something that we should do. Rather look at courtship. Even if we think about the idea of choosing between 5 people. So I'm seeing 5 people that I'm seeing that I want to choose from. That is a lot of people and a lot of information to try and take and make a decision on one person that you're going to live with for the rest of your life. So slow down. We need to slow down. I think that's a good point that we got from Brother Towas, is that we actually do need to slow down when it comes to the idea of finding a mate. And another thing that I've also picked up, you made another good point about friendship. The world today pushes the idea that you shouldn't marry your friend. That doesn't come from a point of from a good point. Why would you choose someone that you know nothing about to try and start to get to know them, rather than choose someone that you actually know very well?
Exactly.
So today you'll see that even in the church, people will say, no, they know nice girls from our church. But they're good, upstanding, good girls there. And it comes down to issues about preferences, where preferences get in the way of actually choosing a good mate. So another thing that I also say is that when you get sick, 6 foot is not going to be there. It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter whether your wife has blue eyes or nice skin. All these preferences will fall away, and what remains is the character. What kind of a character of a person is going to remain when things get tough, when money runs out, those kind of things. So when we're looking for a mate, we should focus on good character. Good character, and obviously somebody who believes. And when we talk about beliefs, we're not talking about going to church. Just going to church is not enough when we're looking for a mate. There are a lot of people who are going to church, but even at church you can see that there's work to be done. And then I think if we submit ourselves to God, we need to submit ourselves to God. And I'm not saying that we need to make our relationship perfect with God before we go out to look for a mate. But our intention and our motivations must be pure in regards to finding a mate. And then we can go out there and find a mate. And we must also offer grace as well. I think you mentioned another good point, that you are dating someone who is someone else's husband. Respect them in that way. Paul charged Timothy in the same way he said, treat the young women as your sisters. So treat the young women as your sisters. So somebody who's not your wife, yes, you might have romantic interest for them, but you still need them to treat them as your sister. Respect them and love them in the way that you love your sister, enough that you do not want to spoil them. You also don't want to spoil them, because you might not be the person who marries her. So you should love her for that. I think I'll give you. You guys are going to camp. Some are going to camp, might not be going to camp. But camp is also an opportunity to observe and find mates. It's a good opportunity. I'll give you a story. When we were going to camp, I was in Bulawayo in Zimbabwe. And there was a girl. I said, when I go to camp, I want to talk to that girl. And it was my first day, it was my first month at work, so I couldn't take time off. So I arrived late at the camp, and when I got there, another brother had already made a move on her. And you know what? I was happy for them. I was happy for them because he was a good guy, she was a good girl. And they've been married longer than we have. And they're still together. And I'm happy for them, because that's how we should be as well. That when you take a girl and you're going out with it, even if you're not going to marry her, you need to live in a perfect state that you found her in. And she will hopefully get somebody who she deserves, who's there for God. And why it's important for us to celebrate these relationships as well is because the more marriages that work, the better the house of God, the better our communities, the better our nations, because it all comes from marriage. Just to close off, last week I put out a tweet similar to what you said earlier on, because I have an intention when I'm on social media, and I speak to young men and I encourage people to marry, because the institution of marriage is good. The people who get into this institution might not work sometimes, but the institution itself and how God prepared it and arranged it is good and it's perfect. And the devil now comes and says, no, marriage is bad because of this. No, marriage is not bad, but the conditions and the people who get into that institution. So I was saying last week that I said, dear young man, you have no business providing for somebody who's not your wife. And the general idea is that the things that are for married people are for married people. A woman mustn't expect another guy to provide for her. Provide. So me buying airtime once in a while is not necessarily providing. But if you get into a relationship where you're waiting to have somebody provide for you, then it's not a good dynamic for people who are not married, because that is reserved for married people. If you buy a gift, a small gift that you can buy, you're not necessarily providing, you're just showing appreciation here and there, just the same way you do for friends. But when you now get into a relationship where you're providing for, then if she cannot reciprocate, there becomes a power dynamic.
Absolutely.
Which is a dangerous precedent, because it now, and this is with dating in general, there are no boundaries in dating generally. It's an open field where, but still whatever you decide works for you and your relationship, you do. Whatever you decide for you and your relationship, you do, because it's dating, and it's not kind of defined in the Word of God as something that has boundaries. This is an invention. For argument's sake, when do you think the idea of dating came into being? Like the idea of dating. The late 1800s to early 1900s. This is how young dating is. Before that, it was just arranged marriage and courtship. There wasn't this idea. So it's a very, very new idea, the idea of dating. So when we go out there, we need to obviously, because this is the kind of situation that we're in, it comes down to our boundaries. What boundaries do we set for ourselves? And those boundaries must be guided by God's word, not our own inventions. So that's the last thing I'd like to leave, is that when we go out, if we're dating, we set boundaries, godly boundaries for ourselves first, not even for the other person, for ourselves. And then that will instruct. And I think the very last thing, because this is very important. In dating, it's going to be, anybody can because there are no boundaries. Anyone you can propose to a guy. It happens. There's 50-50 in dating. There are all sorts of rules around dating. But as men, I'm speaking mostly to the men now, because you have a God-given responsibility, there's certain things that must come from the man, which is to guide that relationship. And to also, the issue of intention needs to come from the guy. It needs to come from the guy, because you're the one who's been tasked by God to lead. So that is how you lead. You lead by guiding and say, we are getting into this relationship because we are looking to get married. Not this idea that things sort of like just from a friendship, people just assimilate into the next stage, and then assimilate into the next stage where no clear boundaries have been set, no clear intention has been set, and this needs to come from the guys. It needs to come from the guys who said, no, this. And if a relationship doesn't work, then people shouldn't just walk away. They must dissolve it the way they started it, by saying, this has failed to work, let us cut. So you're freeing this person to go safely, and you also go safely. So those are the last few words I'd just like to leave for our viewers. Yeah.
Thank you so much. As the viewers have heard from Brother Tanaka, I would like to thank you for adding your perspective, your godly perspective from biblical standards on what we should look out for. So thank you so much for taking the time to just guide us as young people, because we really appreciate especially advice from the elderly, because it's difficult for us to go to someone older and be like, hey, here I'm having this problem. So certain things, what happens is that we end up going to the world, and the world ends up teaching us things which are not scriptural. So thank you so much for that point. I also like to thank Brother Mtwai. Today you came, man of the match. You came to perform. You came to perform. So thank you so much for what you added. And thank you so much, Pemanya, for taking the time to come here and really put us under pressure with your challenging questions. So just for me to add something, what I noted down is that dating changes based on, you see what people do out there. So many people have different kinds of trends, but as Christians we should never be moved by them. We should stay firm to the word, because the world may change, but the word of God remains the same. What I picked up is that we are given roles. Whether you're a husband or a wife, you have a role to play. So regardless of what the world's saying that this needs to change this year, no. We know what scripture says about certain things, and we have guidelines to assist us in terms of how we must approach. And what I noted is that we must not date, we must court. So dating must come aside, it must be a courtship. So thank you for all your comment. Hey, Sekoa today is killing me. But thank you so much for all your contributions, and hopefully please join us for the next episode where we'll tackle other things and mind-blowing things. So your host today, Bongani, aka The Bongs, with Mtwa, with Pemanja. Thank you so much, Brother Tanaka. See you next time on Truth Over Trends. Thank you.